Welcome back, everybody. Today we're diving into something we all see before a movie even starts, and something that can really set the tone for our entire viewing experience, movie trailers.
Yeah, trailers are those little snippets of movie magic meant to, well, pull us in. They try to highlight the story, show off the actors, and, get us excited to actually go see the full film.
They are pretty powerful, even if they are short, but what happens when a trailer doesn't quite live up to what we see on the big screen?
You're talking about the age-old problem of misleading trailers.
Exactly. We
Mm.
all know trailers that give away way too much of the plot. Those are annoying. But today, I want to focus on trailers that flat out lie to us.
Oh, yeah, those can be frustrating. I mean, we're talking potentially legal ramifications, not to mention disappointed fans.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're going to explore examples of misleading trailers, specifically in the world of science fiction movies.
Sci-Fi. Interesting choice.
Well, it feels like sci-fi might be more susceptible to this kind of creative marketing, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I mean, sci-fi often has really outlandish concepts,
Yeah.
things that might be hard to explain or sell in a 2-minute trailer. Plus, sci-fi often blends with other genres like action or horror.
Right, so it can be a challenge to find that perfect balance, I guess, between representing the film accurately and making it palatable for a wider audience. And let's be real, sometimes it feels like the trailers just want to shove a famous face in our direction.
Yeah, putting all the focus on that big name actor, even if they have like 5 minutes of screen time in the actual movie.
It happens more often than you'd think.
So you sent me some really fascinating material about some particularly misleading sci-fi trailers. We're talking Godzilla, the 2014 one, Edge of Tomorrow, Downsizing, that very first teaser trailer for Alien 3, Morbius Avengers, Infinity War, After Earth, Dune, Part 1, Predators, and even Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ooh, we got a lot to unpack there.
We do. I'm honestly kind of excited about this one. Some of these are wild.
Okay, well, let's start with Godzilla. What stood out to you the most about its trailer?
Well, first of all, the whole marketing campaign, it had this really dark, really serious vibe to it. And the Godzilla, it felt like a more classic monster movie version.
Yeah, definitely a departure from the more over-the-top, maybe Americanized versions we had seen before.
Right, exactly. But the real kicker, and where I think the deception lies, is with Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston. Interesting.
He's all over the trailer, right? And it really makes it seem like his character, Joe Brody, the engineer, that he's going to be like the main guy leading the charge against Godzilla.
Which makes sense marketing-wise. I mean, he was coming off of Breaking Bad at the time. Huge popularity.
Oh, massive. So they're definitely playing on that,
Yeah.
cashing in on his credibility and star power to draw people in.
Right. They want audiences to think, okay, Bryan Cranston's in this. It's got to be good. Got to be intense.
Exactly. But then in the actual movie, spoiler alert, he dies pretty early on.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So the trailer really inflates his role, doesn't it?
It totally does. Like, there's even a lot of voiceover from him in the trailer, and they show all these clips that make it seem like he's like the driving force behind figuring out how to stop Godzilla. But then, boom, gone.
It's a shame, really. Can you imagine that confrontation, Bryan Cranston versus Godzilla, for like the whole movie?
Right. That would have been epic.
Talk about a missed opportunity.
Okay, let's move on to Edge of Tomorrow. This one's a little different because it's not so much about misleading the audience about a specific actor's role.
Oh, so what is it about then?
It's more about the overall tone and feel of the movie. The trailer makes it out to be this super serious, super dramatic war film.
Yeah, I remember that trailer. They used that slowed down version of "This is not the end," really amped up the gravitas.
Exactly. But the actual movie, while it is about a war with aliens and all that, it's actually got a surprising amount of humor in it.
Really? I haven't seen that one in a while.
It's actually pretty funny. I mean, there's this whole running gag with Tom Cruise's character dying over and over again because of the alien blood and the time loop thing. And the way they show him dying each time, it's kind of hilarious. Like one time he gets completely smushed by a tank. It's ridiculous.
So the trailer totally downplayed the comedic elements.
Oh, for sure. It makes you wonder if they thought, sci-fi fans won't want to see a funny alien invasion movie or something like that.
Maybe they were afraid to alienate the core audience, the folks who are expecting a more serious, gritty sci-fi war movie.
Yeah, it could be. The source material actually says the trailer should have been more like Men in Black than War of the Worlds.
That makes a lot of sense now that you mention it.
Right. It's a good example of how a trailer can really shape our expectations going into a movie. Later marketing materials actually leaned into the live, die, repeat tagline, which better reflects the movie's, kind of absurd time loop premise.
Okay, that's interesting. So next up we have Downsizing, where the trailer took almost the opposite approach.
Oh yeah, this one's a doozy. They went all in on presenting this movie as like a light, feel-good comedy. The whole gimmick is people shrinking themselves to live in these tiny little communities, and they played up all the cute and quirky visuals.
Right, like that shot of Matt Damon next to a giant flower bulb. I remember that.
That's the one. And the source material points out that they mostly used footage from the first act of the film, which is definitely the most comedic part.
So they're deliberately giving the impression that the whole movie's going to be like that.
Pretty much. You go in expecting, some laughs, some charming miniature world shenanigans. But then the movie takes a pretty hard left turn due to some serious and honestly kind of depressing territory.
Oh, I actually haven't seen this one.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Matt Damon's character, right, his wife, ends up backing out of the shrinking procedure, so he's kind of stuck in this mini world on his own. And then the story starts to explore these bigger themes about, humanity's impact on the environment and the potential for ecological disaster.
Huh, that's not what I was expecting at all.
Right. It gets pretty dark, even apocalyptic at times. Like the whole point of downsizing was to save resources and avoid destroying the planet. But it turns out that even that might not be enough. And then there's this whole subplot about building these underground bunkers to, escape the inevitable collapse of civilization.
Wow, so not exactly a lighthearted comedy then.
Not at all. It feels like they really buried the lead with that trailer, trying to hide the heavier themes to appeal to a wider audience.
That's kind of a bait and switch, isn't it?
Totally. It makes you wonder how many people went in expecting a fun, quirky romp and came out feeling, well, a little bummed out.
Right, not the feel-good experience they were promised.
Okay, let's talk about a truly legendary example of trailer deception. The teaser trailer for Alien 3.
Ah, yes, this one's infamous.
It's considered by many to be one of the most misleading trailers ever, like major studio-level deception.
What did they do?
So the trailer starts off really classic Alien, right? You see a xenomorph egg, it's hatching, you've got this ominous narrator talking about the terror of the original film.
Setting the mood, getting you right back into that world.
Exactly. But then the trailer ends with this line. In 1992, we will discover on Earth everyone can hear you scream.
Whoa, that's a pretty bold statement.
Right. They're basically telling us straight up that the xenomorphs are coming to Earth.
And of course, that's not what happens at all.
Nope. The actual movie takes place entirely in space on some kind of prison planet, no Earth in sight.
So what happened there? I mean, why create such a wildly misleading trailer?
Well, Alien 3 had a really troubled production, lots of behind-the-scenes drama. It came out 6 years after Aliens, which was a huge hit, so there was a lot of pressure to deliver. The source material mentions that this teaser trailer was released a full year before the movie even came out, when they were just starting to film.
So they probably didn't even have a finished script at that point.
Right. It's like they just threw out this crazy promise to get people hyped, even though they had no idea how they were going to deliver on it.
And funnily enough, xenomorphs didn't actually show up on Earth until the Alien vs. Predator movies.
It took a while. But with the new Alien Earth series coming out on FX, maybe they should just reuse that old teaser.
Yeah, with the tagline like, and this time we mean it.
Exactly. Okay, let's fast forward to a more recent example of trailer shenanigans, Morbius.
Ah, Morbius. This one really highlights the challenges of building a shared cinematic universe.
For sure. The trailer for Morbius had this one very specific shot that sent fans into a frenzy of speculation.
You're talking about that shot of Jared Leto's character walking past the Spider-Man mural.
Yep, the one with murderer spray painted across it. And it even looked like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man suit, adding fuel to the fire. People immediately started theorizing, okay, this is how Spider-Man is going to be in this movie. It felt like a big confirmation that Sony's Spider-Man universe was finally coming together.
But then, surprise, surprise, neither Spider-Man nor that mural actually appears in the movie?
Nope. Completely absent. It was pure misdirection, a way to get fans talking and create buzz around a connection that wasn't actually there.
And then they threw in that post-credit scene with Michael Keaton's Vulture from the MCU, which just made things even more confusing.
Right. Like, how did he even end up in Morbius's universe? And that whole vague reference to Spider-Man, it just felt like more teasing without any real payoff.
Sony's Spider-Man universe is kind of a mess, isn't it? They keep hinting at this big Spider-Man crossover, but it never seems to materialize. Like, Remember that Venom, Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene where Venom gets transported to the MCU for like 2 seconds and then he's just back in his own world?
Oh, yeah. It feels like they're just dangling Spider-Man in front of us without actually committing to anything.
It's like they're afraid to fully pull the trigger on that crossover.
Maybe they are. But these misleading trailers and post-credit scenes, they just leave fans feeling frustrated and confused.
Speaking of shared universes, even the mighty MCU has had its share of misleading trailer moments.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Avengers. Infinity War.
What do you remember about its marketing?
Well, there was this one shot in the trailer that everyone went crazy for. This epic charge into battle against Thanos' army in Wakanda.
I think I remember that. Wasn't it like all the heroes together running towards the camera?
Yes, you had Captain America, Black Panther, Black Widow, and most importantly, the Hulk, all charging side by side. It was this huge moment of like heroic unity, and it got everyone super pumped for the movie.
But that shot doesn't actually exist in the film, does it?
Nope. It was completely fabricated for the trailer. And you know what's even more interesting?
What's that?
Bruce Banner actually never transforms into the Hulk during the Wakanda battle. He spends the whole fight piloting the Hulkbuster armor.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. So they really went out of their way to create this misleading image of the Hulk fighting alongside the other heroes.
They did.
Yeah.
But honestly, looking back, it makes sense from a narrative standpoint. Bruce's whole struggle with the Hulk was a big part of his character arc at that point, and having him Hulk out right away would have undermined that. Plus, it would have been a massive spoiler.
You're right. If people had known going in that Hulk wasn't going to be in the Wakanda battle, it would have been a huge letdown.
So in this case, you could argue that the misleading trailer actually served a purpose. Preserving the surprise and keeping the focus on Bruce's internal conflict.
And that conflict eventually led to the emergence of Smart Hulk in Endgame, so it all worked out in the end.
It did. Okay, let's switch gears back to Sony for a bit and talk about After Earth, the one with Will Smith and his son Jaden.
Oh, After Earth? What was the trailer trickery there?
Well, the trailer really leaned into Will Smith's star power, which, makes sense. He's a huge box office draw, especially in sci-fi movies.
He's got the whole, like, charismatic action hero thing going on, yeah?
Exactly. And the trailer for After Earth really played that up. He's all over the place. He's even doing the narration. And it really gives the impression that he's going to be the main protagonist, leading the charge against whatever dangers they encounter on this post-apocalyptic Earth.
So basically, they used Will Smith's star power to sell a movie that was actually more focused on his son?
In the actual movie, Will Smith's character gets injured pretty early on, and the majority of the story is about his son, Kitai, played by Jaden, trying to survive on this dangerous planet and, prove himself. Will Smith spends most of the movie just communicating with his son remotely.
So they basically used Will Smith as bait to get people interested in a movie that was really a vehicle for his son's career.
It feels that way. It makes you wonder if they thought Jaden could carry a big-budget sci-fi movie on his own back then.
It was kind of a tough time for him, I think. There were a lot of comparisons to the Karate Kid remake, which, wasn't exactly a critical darling.
Right, so maybe they thought they needed to lean on Will's star power to get people in the seats.
Makes sense from a marketing perspective, even if it's a bit misleading.
Okay, let's move on to a more recent example, Dune, Part 1. This movie had a massive cast, but the trailers seemed to really highlight one actor in particular, even though their role in the first part of the story is relatively small.
You're talking about Zendaya, right?
Yeah. I mean, she's a huge star, so it's not surprising that they would want to showcase her in the trailer. But if you hadn't read the books, you would have thought she was going to be a major character in Part 1.
Right, like one of the main protagonists alongside Timothée Chalamet.
Exactly. But in reality, she only has about 7 minutes of screen time in the entire movie.
7 minutes? Wow, that's pretty misleading.
It is. But it makes sense when you consider that Dune is being told in 2 parts. They're obviously setting her up for a bigger role in Part 2, and they wanted to capitalize on her star power to draw in a wider audience.
It's smart from a business standpoint, I guess, even if it's a bit disingenuous. I mean, they even paid her a ridiculous amount of money for those 7 minutes.
$300,000, if the reports are true.
Yeah, so they definitely knew what they were doing, using her as a selling point, even if her role wasn't that big in Part 1.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about a trailer that promised a lot more of something very specific. Predators.
Ah, predators, as in multiple predators.
Yes, and the trailer really played up the idea that we were going to see a whole bunch of these alien hunters.
I think I remember that. Was there a scene where, like, a bunch of Predator laser sights were pointed at someone in the jungle?
Yes, that's the one. It was Adrian Brody's character, and it looked like he was surrounded by, like, a dozen predators, all targeting him with their laser sights.
Talk about a terrifying visual.
Right. It made it seem like the humans were completely outnumbered, facing an overwhelming force.
But how many Predators were there actually in the movie?
Only 4.
4, that's it?
Yeah, just 4. So, while the title wasn't technically a lie, the trailer definitely exaggerated the scale of the threat.
That's a pretty big difference, one Predator versus a whole army of them.
It is. And that scene with the laser sights, in the actual movie, there's only one laser pointer.
So they just multiplied it for the trailer to make it seem more intense.
Exactly. It's a classic case of, amping up the danger to get people excited.
Okay, this has been a fascinating deep dive, exploring how science fiction trailers can sometimes be, shall we say, creatively edited.
Absolutely. From highlighting stars who barely appear to completely misrepresenting the tone and story, these trailers demonstrate that marketing doesn't always align with the actual movie.
It reminds us that trailers are ultimately just tools designed to get us into those theater seats. They're not always the most reliable guide to what we'll actually see on screen.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave you with a thought. Given all these examples of misleading trailers, how should we approach them?
Should we watch with a skeptical eye, constantly questioning what's real and what's not? Or should we just embrace the hype, accepting that a little bit of creative liberty is just part of the game?
It's a tough question. I guess the answer probably lies somewhere in between. But either way, it's good to be aware of these tactics so we can manage our expectations and appreciate the movies for what they are, not for what the trailers promised us.
Until our next deep dive, stay curious.
See you next time.